The Tribble. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Captain Madeline Pavlovic gripped the arms of her command chair as the USS Firebird shuddered under enemy fire. The bridge flashed with emergency lighting as the crew responded with practiced efficiency. Shields at 62%, called out helmsman Amadeus Wolfgang, his fingers dancing across the controls. Commander Rebecca Parker stood firmly beside the captain's chair. Klingon bird of prey, Captain. They're charging weapons for another volley. Evasive pattern Delta 6, Mr. Wolfgang, ordered Pavlovic. Mr. Marsden, target their weapon systems. Chief of Security Rex Marsden nodded, his eyes locked on his tactical display. Phasers locked, Captain. Fire. The Firebird's phasers lanced through space, striking the Klingon vessel. The enemy ship lurched, green disruptor fire going wide. Direct hit, Captain, reported Marsden. Their forward weapons array is disabled. Pavlovic turned to communications. Lieutenant Craig Miles hailed them. Channel open, Captain. The view screen flickered to show a Klingon commander, his ridged forehead furrowed in anger. Federation vessel, you have violated Klingon space and will be destroyed. Parker stepped forward. Captain, according to our navigational charts, we are well within Federation territory. Check again, Commander, Pavlovic muttered. Parker leaned over Navigator Ludwig's station, studying the star charts. Maddie, she said quietly, using the familiar name that only she dared use on the bridge. There's something off about these coordinates. The Klingon commander bellowed. You have 10 seconds to surrender. Chief Engineer Alvario, Pavlovic called over the comm. Status report. Engines are operational, Captain, came the reply from engineering. But there's an unusual energy field affecting our sensor readings. I think it's throwing off our navigation. Dr. Alba stepped onto the bridge. Captain, I've been analyzing that strange cargo we picked up at Starbase 12. I think it might be related to our current predicament. Not now, Doctor, Pavlovic said, eyes fixed on the Klingon. 5 seconds, the Klingon shouted. Maddie, Parker said with quiet urgency, I think we should hear the doctor out. Pavlovic trusted Parker's instincts implicitly. Stand by, she told the Klingon, then nodded to Alba. Make it quick, Doctor. The cargo contains genetically modified tribbles, Alba explained hastily. They're emitting a low-level telepathic field that's affecting both our instruments and, I believe, the Klingons as well. We're both seeing what the tribbles want us to see. Pavlovic and Parker exchanged looks of disbelief. Tribbles, they said in unison. The Captain James T. Kirk incident. Parker added, a hint of amusement in her normally composed features. Pavlovic turned back to the screen. Commander, I propose a temporary ceasefire. We may both be victims of external influence. The Klingon scoffed. Tricks. Scan your own sensors for biological interference, Parker suggested. Specifically, a small furry kind. The Klingon's eyes widened slightly. He barked orders to someone off-screen, then looked back with growing horror. Tribbles. On my ship. It seems we have a common enemy, Pavlovic said diplomatically. One Captain Kirk and the original Enterprise crew encountered at Space Station K7 almost a century ago. The Great Tribble Hunt is still commemorated in the Empire, the Klingon admitted grudgingly. Very well. Ceasefire granted while we investigate. After the communication ended, Pavlovic turned to her crew. Dr. Alba neutralized those tribbles, Mr. Craig Miles. Contact Starbase 12 and find out how we ended up with genetically enhanced tribbles in our cargo bay. And why they're telepathic, Parker added. 2 hours later, with the tribbles contained in special fields designed by Chief Engineer Alvario, the senior staff gathered in the conference room. So, Pavlovic began, leaning forward on her elbows. We almost started a war with the Klingon Empire because of fuzzy little creatures that wanted us to fight. They're a new Klingon bioweapon, explained Alba, designed to cause conflict between allies by telepathically manipulating sensor readings and heightening aggressive emotions. Parker shook her head. Using tribbles, the species' natural enemy, as a weapon, there's a certain irony there. The irony wasn't lost on our Klingon friends, Pavlovic said. Lieutenant Craig Miles, what did Starbase 12 have to say? The cargo was labeled as research specimens, Captain, the communications officer replied. They had no idea what was inside. The requisition came through official channels. A perfect delivery system, Parker observed. No one questions official cargo. Navigator Ludwig spoke up. Captain, I've been thinking about the historical precedent. When Kirk encountered tribbles, they helped expose a Klingon spy and poisoned grain. These tribbles nearly caused a shooting war. Marsden added grimly. Pavlovic stood, pacing the room. Which means we need to find who's behind this. Parker, what's your assessment? Rebecca Parker considered for a moment. Not the Klingon High Council. They wouldn't risk war over an experimental weapon. This has the hallmarks of a rogue faction. Agreed, Pavlovic said with a nod. Mr. Wolfgang, set course for Starbase 12. We need to trace this shipment back to its source. As the meeting disbanded, Parker remained behind with Pavlovic. Penny for your thoughts, Becky, the captain asked when they were alone. Parker smiled at the use of her nickname. Just thinking about Kirk and Spock. The historical logs say Spock was the only one who recognized the danger of tribbles immediately, while Kirk found them charming until they overran the station. Pavlovic finished with a laugh. Some things never change. The more advanced the weapon, the cuter the package. Speaking of which, Parker said, pulling a small containment unit from her pocket. Dr. Alba wanted us to keep this one for study. Inside was a single purring tribble, its fur a shimmering silver rather than the traditional brown. Pavlovic raised an eyebrow. Is that wise? Probably not, Parker admitted. But it is fascinating. Now you sound like Spock, Pavlovic teased. Parker's eyes crinkled with humor. And you, Maddie, have that same gleam Kirk got before diving headfirst into trouble. Well then, Pavlovic said, clapping her friend on the shoulder, let's live up to our predecessors. We've got rogue Klingons to catch and a conspiracy to unravel. Aye, Captain, Parker replied with a warm smile. Wouldn't miss it for the world.